Let me be blunt, you might not like hearing this, but it's quietly eating away at your life. It's not fate, it's not luck, and it's not that chemical reaction you romanticize. It's a trap, an invisible prison hiding behind the feeling of being pulled toward someone. And the most chilling part is this: you're not actually loving them. You're loving a ghost, a mirror reflecting your own wound, the darkest part of you that you've been avoiding, refusing to look at directly. Ask yourself, have you ever felt your heart hammer just from hearing their voice? Has a single notification made your whole body shiver, as if you'd finally met the destiny you'd been waiting for all your life? What you call love at first sight, the obsession you think you can't control, really, it's your unconscious trying to shout something at you. Carl Jung understood this. He said it with a cold, precise clarity. What compels you isn't the other person, but your own shadow in disguise. It's what you buried years ago, the parts you once rejected now returning with an unfamiliar face. Think carefully. That irresistible pull doesn't come from peace. It grows out of emptiness. It's like a magnet that only works because there's a hole inside you. And that hole has names: abandonment, rejection, betrayal, emotional deprivation in childhood. The attraction that's burning you up isn't written in the stars. It's your wound screaming to be tended. But because you don't understand it, you rush toward it like a blind person mistaking a bonfire for shelter. Picture this. You meet someone, and within seconds your mind builds a whole universe. They suddenly seem unique, special, almost divine. In reality, what you just did is project the parts of yourself you don't recognize. You dress them in your expectations, your ghosts, the forgotten fragments of your soul. You're not seeing them, you're seeing yourself in them. And that's the trap. The more obsessed you become, the farther you drift from the truth. You're not loving, you're self-hypnotizing. You're not choosing, you're repeating. Carl Jung put it bluntly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So you get stuck in relationships that seem different, but are actually the same loop. Different names, different faces, identical script, entranced by intensity, by chemistry, by drama. Then, bit by bit, just when you think you've found love, you wake up in the old nightmare: abandonment, arguments, manipulation, pain. And yet, you repeat it, like an addict seeking the next dose. Here's the terrifying part. Your desire isn't free. You think you choose who to love, but your past trauma chooses for you, and it chooses with uncanny precision. It pushes you straight toward people who will reactivate the very wounds you never healed. As if your unconscious keeps trying to restage the cut, hoping for a different ending, but only carving it deeper. It's a dark theater where you play the same role again and again until you decide to open your eyes. And when you finally dare to look, you see a bitter truth. What you called love wasn't love, it was compulsion. It was your shadow demanding space. It was the hurt child inside you calling from the bottom of the well. As long as you don't acknowledge it, you remain trapped in illusion. Because what you're desperately chasing isn't another person, it's yourself. Here comes the most painful twist. If you're not healed, true love can't touch you. True love doesn't hurt, doesn't haunt, doesn't drag you along. True love is quiet. It is freedom. It is peace. The other thing, the one you've felt so many times, is just your shadow dressed up as passion. Until you integrate it, until you sit down and talk with your wounds, you'll keep falling into the arms of mirages. So ask yourself, what if the soulmate you've long believed in is actually your private demon asking to be freed? What if every irresistible attraction is your unconscious raising a mirror to the exact place you're torn? Carl Jung was right. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The choice is stark. Either you wake up and start integrating your shadow, or you remain chained to illusions that will devour you. The question is, are you ready to see what's behind the mirror? And here's the mind's most dangerous game. Once you realize that the irresistible pull comes from your own shadow, an even thornier question appears. What does it mean to truly love? If obsession and surging chemistry are just symptoms of a hidden wound, how do you recognize real love without confusing it for illusion? True love in Carl Jung's spirit, the fruit of inner integration, doesn't arrive with fireworks or emotional hurricanes. It's so gentle it can be unsettling. It doesn't trigger anxiety or vertigo. It brings stillness. And here's the paradox. The healthier the bond, the less intensity you feel at the start. Because the intensity you're used to has always been pain in the costume of passion. The problem is, we've been misprogrammed. We equate love with drama. We were taught that what blazes is real, while what kindles slowly is mediocre. This confusion isn't random. If your earliest emotional experiences were marked by absence, rejection, or the emotional distance of the very people meant to hold you, your brain quietly wrote a definition: love equals pain. So in adulthood, your body seeks what's familiar, not what's healthy. And familiar is toxic intensity, which always leads to suffering. Pause and examine your life. How many times have you mistaken restlessness for passion? How many times have you called butterflies what was actually anxiety? How many times have you decided that a peaceful love isn't enough? That's your proof. The unconscious is still projecting the old script. What looks boring might be exactly what you need. What feels magnetic is likely a reenactment of your wound. That's the trap. We choose the familiar even when it destroys us, instead of opening to the unknown that could save us. Here's a painful but true Carl Jung concept: individuation. The journey of daring to descend into your inner depths, to recognize your inner demons, integrate them, and transform. Only when you face the shadow do you stop needing to project it onto others. Because every time you hand your wound to someone else to heal, you sentence yourself to repeat the cycle. No one can heal what you refuse to face. No partner can give you what you won't give yourself. A colder mystery remains. The unconscious doesn't just repeat the wound, it protects it. Yes, your mind will keep you trapped in what hurts, but feels familiar rather than risk the unknown of healing. It's like an iron guard protecting the bars, thinking they keep you safe. So you keep choosing what destroys you, believing it's what you want. Face a chilling truth. Many of your relationships were never free choices. They were moves, calculated by a silent trauma. Every time you said, "They're meant for me," you might have really meant, "They're perfect for reactivating my old wound." Worse, it can feel sacred, inescapable, meant to be. See the scale of the inner manipulation? But that's not all. Carl Jung warned that the shadow isn't only personal, it's collective. Whole societies are built on projections. What we won't accept in ourselves, we cast onto others and label enemy, temptation, threat. Love works the same way. When you haven't integrated your shadow, you see it in every gaze, every relationship, every irresistible pull. The more you reject it, the more it rises. The way out isn't to renounce love, but to learn to see it with different eyes. When you feel that fierce attraction, don't surrender blindly. Ask, what part of me is being reflected in this person? What wound just got touched? What emptiness is echoing? Then, desire stops being a sentence and becomes a compass that points precisely to where you need to heal. And just when you think you've understood the mechanism of shadow, another mystery appears. Time. Not clock time, but psychological time, where old wounds are stored as if they happened yesterday. The unconscious doesn't distinguish past from present. What you endured in childhood didn't stay back there. It lives in you, waiting for the moment to surface. That's why each time you're pulled intensely toward someone, you're actually time traveling. You're not intoxicated by that person. You're intoxicated by the wound they accidentally awaken. It's as if the unconscious opens a gate and shoves you back into an unfinished chapter. It wants a different ending, emotional justice. But here's the cruel paradox. In trying to save yourself, you lock yourself up again. The mantra, "This time will be different," rings out, then the ending repeats, until you decide to break the spell. Here's something rarely said. Obsession isn't only fed by wounds, but also by the fear of loneliness. When you're alone, the inner voices become piercingly clear. It's easier to lose yourself in someone else's storm than to sit with the echo of your own emptiness. That's why many people jump from relationship to relationship, not to find love, but to find anesthesia. The feeling of being magnetically drawn becomes the perfect drug. It distracts, numbs, devours, but never heals. Flip the question. What if the measure of love isn't how you feel with someone, but how you feel when you're alone? If you can't be at peace with yourself, you'll never be at peace with anyone, because what you deny inside will return wearing someone else's face. That's the bitter irony. You flee your shadow to find love, only to find your shadow dressed as love. Carl Jung offered a way out. No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The hardest challenge is to stare straight at the wound without throwing a romantic blanket over it. Learn to integrate what hurts before you hand it to someone else. That work is so hard that most choose the mirage, because diving into an intoxicating infatuation is always easier than standing naked before your own soul. And if you think this lives only in the emotional realm, wait for the biology. Every magnetic pull triggers neural circuits akin to addiction. Dopamine, cortisol, adrenaline. Your whole body flips into survival mode, as if the presence or absence of that person were life or death. That's not love. That's a chemical coup serving unprocessed trauma. And here's the truly eerie part. If you haven't healed, your body becomes an accomplice. That's why so many mistake emotional withdrawal for eternal love. In reality, it's withdrawal syndrome, the body demanding another hit of intensity, tragedy, pain marinated in the label, passion. Dependence is the slyest shadow. It whispers that without them, you can't breathe. The truth is, without them, you can't keep feeding the wound the old way. And that's what terrifies you. But when you learn to sit quietly with yourself, the love spell loses power. You stop confusing intensity with love. The chemical waves may still rise, but now you have a shore. Before we go further, let me touch what many are searching for: a foundation to begin. If you feel a part of you is trying to awaken and you don't know where to start, seriously restructure your way of thinking, because how you think shapes how you live. Choose a path that helps you see more clearly. A set of self-inquiry questions, a trigger recognition journal, lean practice frameworks to integrate shadow instead of projecting it. With a solid scaffold, each time you're fiercely attracted, you'll know it's a compass pointing to a wound, not a call from destiny. Back to the journey. You'll make a spine-tingling discovery. What used to be fire is now only smoke. What once felt irresistible now shows its true face, just a reflection of your shadow. And once you see it, everything changes. You stop looking for someone to fill you up. You look for someone to share with once you're already full. From that moment, a new mystery begins. When you no longer need anyone to fill a void, when you no longer chase what hurts you, love appears in a way you never expected, not like a storm, but like a quiet river flowing by. You realize, wild attraction was never a sign of love, it was a map of your wounds. And true love begins the moment you decide to stop following that map. The life or death question is this: are you willing to lose what you long believed was love, to see what was actually an illusion? If not, your life becomes an endless loop of the same deception. If yes, be ready, because nothing will be the same afterward. Then you'll reach a silent edge. When you stop repeating, when the spell breaks, a part of you dies. Yes, an inner death. The part that needs drama, that equates lack with love, that doesn't know how to live without the poison of obsession. That death is frightening, because without it, you're left asking, so who am I? Here's the rarely told secret. From that death, your true self is born. You're no longer the child seeking approval in foreign faces, no longer the adolescent confusing pain with love. no longer the adult replaying an old story and calling it unique. You are the sum of it all once the shadow has been named and placed where it belongs. From there, love is no longer a chain, it's a choice. Strangest of all, when you arrive here, what once was your type starts to look absurd. You can see the old trap from afar, intensity, dressed as destiny, and you smile. You're no longer a slave to the cycle. Because now you understand, what you were seeking in others was always inside you. And then the unexpected appears, a love that doesn't suffocate, doesn't obsess, doesn't devour. A love you didn't know because you weren't healed enough to recognize it before. The conclusion is simple but uncompromising. As long as you won't embrace your shadow, your love life will remain a maze of illusions. But when you dare to face it and choose healing, the maze collapses and true love, the kind that doesn't hurt, appears as naturally as breath. If you see yourself in these lines, remember this signal for yourself. Every overpowering pull is a reminder to turn inward, not to rush outward. And in the next part, we'll dive straight into the concrete steps to leave the mirage behind. How to spot your triggers, how to cool the chemical storm, how to rebuild your standards for choosing so you stop letting trauma choose for you and start choosing for yourself, owning the consequences.